So, you're thinking about learning Russian in 2025. With wars, sanctions, and global tension, it might just seem like the worst time to be learning it. Or perhaps, the most important. Is learning Russian still worth your time and brain power? Well, today, we're going to break it down. What's up everyone, my name's Zion and I'm an American polyglot that's been learning languages for well over 10 years now, and I currently speak 7 languages fluently, and now I make videos on YouTube to share my level of language learning with people like you. And today, like I said in the beginning of this video, we are going to be talking about whether or not it's still worth learning Russian in 2025.
Achoo!
Achoo.
Achoo! Achoo! Achoo!
So for some context, Russian was one of the first languages that I ever learned, and it's actually the best language I speak today aside from my native English. For those of you who've been watching this channel long enough, you may know that I have another channel where I make videos exclusively in Russian. And so Russian holds a special place in my heart like no other language. But with everything going on in the world today, it seems like people just don't have as much of a desire to learn it. But are people doing the right thing? Is learning Russian even worth it anymore? Well, today, I'm going to give you some food for thought. Let's get into it. So starting with number 1, the geopolitical context. Russia's political isolation post its 2022 invasion of Ukraine led to a number of Western businesses leaving the country en masse, which you would think would make Russian a lot less useful on the global scale from a business perspective, especially from someone in the West who wants to get a job working for these Western businesses in Russia. But has Russian really become globally less useful as a result of the divestment that all these Western businesses have done in Russia? Well, one important thing to consider is that Russia is still a major world power. And despite all these tensions and all these sanctions and all these businesses leaving Russia, it's still a key global player. Russia still sits on the UN Security Council, where it has a permanent seat, which essentially assures its importance on a global scale. And it's also one of the largest energy exporters in the world. There are still countless countries around the world that still depend on Russian energy. Whether you're European or American or Indian, no matter where you live in the world, chances are you probably drive a vehicle which runs to some degree on Russian fuel. And so understanding Russian will still enhance your worldview because Russia is still in the UN Security Council, and Russian is still one of the 6 official languages of the UN. And if you want to enter Russia through business means, there's still a whole host of countries buying Russian oil, which presents numerous opportunities, especially if you can speak Russian. So all this now brings us to number 2, Russian's career and economic value. It's true, there is decreased Western job demand for the Russian language. There's far fewer companies today than ever before that require Russian for things such as NGOs, diplomacy, or even business. Most of the companies and governmental organizations that required knowledge of Russian to do business or diplomacy in Russia have pretty much pulled out, and the ones that may still be there might not even require Russian because of their limited presence in the country. And with tensions constantly heating up and with no end to the conflict in sight, demand for the Russian language is probably going to continue to go down in the spheres of business and diplomacy. But one thing you still have to consider is that Russian is still widely used in intelligence and security and translation and in academic research, because a lot of these same countries that are divesting from Russia, that are pulling out from Russia, are increasing spending on security and intelligence operations against Russia. And so while that demand for the Russian language is going down on the business front, there's a whole host of government intelligence agencies and security companies that are looking to hire people that speak Russian. Well, because that's become the new concern. People are a lot less concerned with spending money and investing in Russia in the West, and a lot more concerned with how to defend against Russia. And so don't think of Russian as having necessarily dropped in demand. It's just been repurposed. While demand is going down on one end, it's going up in the other. Not to mention, pretty much everybody in Eastern Europe and Central Asia speaks Russian as well. Number 3, cultural access and relevance. Whether you use TikTok, Instagram Reels, or YouTube Shorts, and whether you really realize it or not, a lot of the creators on these platforms are from Russia or other Russian-speaking countries. And a lot of the songs that become viral on these platforms, on all these short-form content, are also Russian. Despite everything that's happened over the past few years and tensions with the Russian Federation, Russian YouTubers, TikTokers, and artists continue to grow in influence and following. And so learning Russian might still have the advantage of allowing you to tap that untapped potential amongst Russian-speaking audiences. or perhaps even a global audience. This is in addition to the whole host of culture that comes out of Russia, both past and present, with some of the world's most famous Russian-speaking authors like Tolstoy, Dostoevsky, Chekhov, all being in Russian and being rather poorly translated. And so if you're a lover of all things old school art and literature, learning Russian will help you get so much closer to the actual meaning that these people were trying to convey. And now this brings us to number 4, moral and ethical considerations. If I haven't convinced you yet that Russian is still worth learning, then maybe you should consider these following 2 points. First off, is learning Russian really an endorsement of the state and its actions? Or is it just a tool for understanding? Because while you may not agree with what the Russian Federation is doing, while you may not agree with the Russian government and Russian leadership, many Russians, both within and outside of Russia, oppose the war and censorship. And learning Russian can actually help you connect with these voices and help amplify them. So learning and speaking Russian isn't really you supporting Russia and its actions today. It might actually be helping you to amplify the voices that need to actually be heard. The voices from within Russia itself that can actually help bring about change. And number 5, learning Russian is actually a long-term investment. Political landscapes are always changing, and what's happening in the world today might not actually be an accurate representation of a country or a people in the future. So learning Russian could be a long-term bet, because when inevitably relations do thaw and things do get better, the demand for the Russian language is also going to come back, because you can't deny the fact that there's hundreds of millions of people in this world that speak it every day as their main form of communication. Think of the stigma around learning German during World War II and how many people speak and learn German today. Things changed in less than just 80 years. So who's to say things won't change with Russian in the future? And ultimately, you have to decide for yourself, is learning Russian for you a question of passion, heritage, or professional advantage? Or something else altogether, because that should shape your reason for learning Russian more than any geopolitical consideration really should. And there you have it. 5 things that you should think about before you decide that you want to learn Russian. If you ask me, is Russian still worth learning it today? And the answer is yes. Now, of course, I'm still a bit biased because I spent so much time learning Russian, but as a Russian speaker myself, who isn't actually Russian, I think Russian has a lot more to offer than what you see in the news and what's happening in the world today. Russian is still an amazing language spoken by amazing people with hundreds and thousands of years of history and culture behind it. And so, is it still worth it to learn Russian in 2025? Yeah, and you should do it too. And if you're looking for resources on how to better learn Russian, well, you can find those elsewhere on this channel. And let me know down in the comments below what you think. Is it still worth it to learn Russian today? Anyway, that's all. If you enjoyed this video and you want me to make more content like this in the future, please leave a like, comment, and sub to the channel, because that tells the YouTube algorithm that you love me and my content. And also mention down below in the comments what you want to see in the next video. Anyways, as always, keep learning those languages, and I'll see you guys in the next one.